Hey family, it's Tasha MAMABEAR prepping. You already know what time it is. Get your drink pull up. Let's slurp it. Yum, yum, yum. Okay, so let's just get into what we are doing today. So we are talking about, obviously with us getting ready to move, moving when you are somebody who prepares, you are somebody who stockpiles, you are somebody who, has a lot of supplies, has a lot of maybe preserved food, a lot of jars, you have a lot of maybe pets and animals and livestock and feed, and you just have all of these things, right? You have big containers possibly of rainwater for rain catchment, and you have possibly big containers for water, and you just have all these items and things that make moving difficult. Moving already is difficult. It's not the, least stressful thing. It's very, very stressful. It causes a lot of anxiety. And honestly, you have that whether everything's taken care of for you. So for many, many years, we were in the military. And so me and hubby have experienced what's called PCSing, which is when you're moving from one place to another, and the military moves you, right? They actually send a moving company. That moving company will pack you if you want to pack your boxes. They wrap your furniture. Everything is insured. They take it away in a truck. It shows up, amount of time later at your new location. They come, they unload it. They'll put the furniture together. They'll take everything out. It's crazy, the amount of what they'll do and how much that costs. And so when you are a civilian and you are moving, that's a big feat. It doesn't matter if you're moving across town. Obviously, that's much, much easier. But it costs money, takes time, takes effort. And when you throw in somebody who prepares, has a little bit of extra, and not only extra, but very unique things that are sensitive to moving, right? How do you do it, right? And I'm sure that anybody who's had a farm and then needed to move that farm and had animals and livestock, there's a lot of different things you can do, okay? But you have the move, you have the cost of it, and then you have the traveling of your actual family to said location. And all those are like mini movements, mini logistics going on. And that's not counting the prior part, the stress of maybe selling a home, buying a home, finding a home, renting a home, paying all the money for renting a home, the first, the last. It's insanity right now to rent. Anybody who rents, I feel for you. I can't even imagine, man, all these fees and all this extra stuff that people are paying right now. It's a lot, and rent just keeps going up. It's like you're trying to do the right thing. I understand it, and rent is just going up. This happened to us just a few years ago, just a year and a half ago when we moved. Those last few years we were in apartments, and they were just every year going up a couple $100, like it was nothing. Like, oh yeah, you guys can afford that, it's no big deal. Hey, and by the way, if you can't, just get out, right? So I understand that stress level of how hard it is to just survive. But for those of you that can still pull it off, that can still maneuver the way to moving into something better, into something different, I'm just going to discuss some stuff to think about, right? When we talk about, because first of all, this question, the whole reason why I'm doing this video is because a lot of people ask me this question of how do you move with all this stuff? How do you move with glass jars full of preserved food, right? Moving companies have rules, certain things that they'll move, right? They won't move, food that you've preserved like that's in jars. First of all, you don't want them to move it. Let's say you could pack the boxes yourself, or the crates yourself, or the totes yourself, and they would not be the wiser and they would not know, okay? Could you do that? Yes, but you cannot regulate the heat. If you put preserved food like that is in a jar that you've preserved, pressure can, water bait, that doesn't matter, you put it in some kind of tote and you've given it to a moving company, and now that product is in a hot, probably a scorching hot truck, sitting out in the sun, sitting wherever, and not being regulated. And so you're gonna have seals popping left and right. By the time that moving truck gets to your house, you're gonna have food, everywhere smelling bad, because seals have been popping. Now you have leakage, you have all types of contamination. It's not going to be a good look. So that right there, and this number one thing is moving food. How do you move a whole pantry full of glass preserved food, right? It's different if you've started, you vac seal stuff, you vac seal stuff and then you vac seal it and you put it in a 5-gallon bucket, or you vac seal stuff and you put it in totes. obviously much better and much easier to move, but the glass is a problem. So if you're planning to move anytime soon, stop with the glass stuff. I'm personally trying to stop with the glass stuff. It's hard though, because when you have a lifestyle where you have made a huge effort to do everything in glass, you know, everything of ours is in glass. But some stuff will be okay, right? I don't have a problem packing seasonings, let's say, that I've put into glass jars, right? Dehydrated food that I've dehydrated and put into glass jars. I don't mind moving that, having somebody move that for me. But all of the wet stuff, all of the stuff that is the meats, the stews, the soups, all that preserved food that's in a jar, it absolutely cannot go with somebody else. You have to keep that so that you can preserve and keep and maintain some sort of regular temperature set so that stuff is not popping, okay? And the stuff could still pop, right? If you're driving, you have a hot car, you have a hot trailer, whatever it is, you're physically moving it, but you need to be thinking about how you're going to regulate those temperatures. Think about what state you're driving through. How hot does it get during the day? Even just driving in your car and you drive through super, super hot states and you don't have, let's say, car AC, that could be an issue. You could run into issues. Or you're driving through a state that's super, super cold, below temps, you know, below 0 temps, and your stuff is in the car overnight while you stay in a hotel. Like, those are the things you're gonna have to worry about. Now, at the end of the day, also, by you doing it yourself, you're able to keep eyes on it. You're able to possibly identify problems right away. Maybe you're driving, whatever, and you can hear a pop. You can hear, you know, something breaking seal. That could be a thing. But let's say you're pulling a trailer. You just need to be mindful that keeping an eye on stuff and that you're physically doing it, right? That's a lot. If you just have a pantry, that's a lot of logistics and a lot of cargo already just for that. Now you throw in, you know, anything that a mover can't take. Military, they wouldn't take liquor, for example, right? So they would not take liquor. So we always had to physically move our liquor or give it away before we left. Oftentimes we would just give it to our friends, or we would give it to the movers, like whoever, we would give our liquor away. Ain't nobody trying to give stuff away. So that's an item. If you have, you know, weapons and ammo and very, more expensive items that you do not want movers to have access to, that you want to take yourself, you have to be careful. You have to be careful you're traveling with that stuff. How are you traveling with that stuff? What is legal and not legal? Can you get in trouble? Like, what is all the laws and that are governing weapons and ammo? Stuff like pets, you know, it's hard enough moving with, let's say, a cat or a dog or a few dogs. You know, some people have 3, 5 dogs. I can't imagine. You have to move with them. Now, can it be done? Sure. Have you maybe drove around town all the time with your 5 dogs and you're fine and they like the car and you've taken road trips and that's fine? Great. That's perfect. You know, get what you're going to get to make, just like you, to make the road trip great. Figure out logistically where they're going to be at, which vehicle, which wherever, to figure out, obviously, hotel. If you've traveled with them before, you understand hotels. There is hotels out there that will take, you know, cats and dogs. And so it's easier to do that. It's still logistically hard. It's not the funnest thing to do, okay, unless you've, like I said, been doing it already. But it's a little bit difficult. Now, just throw some stuff in there. I don't know. Throw 3 chickens in there, for example, for us. That makes it difficult. I mean, it doesn't matter if we're moving across state to Washington State, right? We're just moving to the other side of the state, or we're moving to Texas. It's hard. The longer and farther you go, though, the harder it is. You know, what hotels do you know that you can bring chickens in? Okay, Tasha, don't bring the chickens in. Leave them in the back of the truck. Okay, now I got to worry about them being somebody stealing them being loud in the parking lot, you know, yelling for mama to bring them a snack and bring them some food, and what's going on, mom? And they're loud. Okay, Tasha, do what livestock people do. Get a livestock truck, and you have this. Am I really getting this livestock truck for 3 chickens, right? So now it becomes, what's too much for the little bit that we have? But the little bit we have is a lot. Let's say you have more than that. It's difficult logistically if we were moving, like I said, across the state and we had goats and a couple cows and we had some chickens. That's a nightmare. And so I can understand why somebody would make the decision to just be like, you know what? We're just going to stay home. We're not going to move. We're not going to do this because it's just too much. It's too much effort. It's too much, it's too much to move these animals, to move this livestock. You know, if you have all their stuff, you know, you've got to have room to travel with the pets, the livestock, their food, water for them, some sort of snacks, treats. You have to be able to handle bathroom needs, right? How they're going to the bathroom. Yeah, it's easy. Throw an animal in a cage. Is that cage big enough for them to sleep and or go to the bathroom? And then they're moving around in a car. And yes, you're stopping at restaurants, you're letting stuff out. But we're not letting the chickens out, for example, at a rest stop. Rest your little feet, run around a little bit, play in the grass, right? So it gets difficult. And so there's a lot of things to think about. You know, when we moved from California, one of the biggest things that we had to deal with was all the water containers. We had to empty all the water containers because, again, a moving company is not going to just, you're not going to be able to just point to the rain barrel and say, take that with the water in it, or take that water barrel with the water in it, right? So so we had to dump all those out in order for the moving company to take it. Some people will be like, okay, no big deal, that's fine. But again, that's a lot of water. That's just, and you don't know what is going to happen between now and you getting from this house to the next house. So it gives me a little bit of anxiety just dumping out water, right? The other thing is, so we moved some water. We took a lot of the 5 gallons and smaller things that we could. We kept them and we moved with them, and they physically came with us. So some stuff we brought with us, but obviously not all of it. So a lot of stuff got dumped out, went with the movers. How about all the other water? Just cases of water, gallon waters, the distilled water for hubby. I mean, imagine if you only have 20 things of water. Right? You don't have the end of the world, but you have 20. That's a lot of water. I mean, the movers were looking at us like, what is up with all this water? And the thing is it was only 20 jugs, but it's a lot to move. And how do you pack that? And then they were worried about, look, all this liquid, right? Military has a problem with a lot of liquids. You can't pack a lot of liquids, right? And, you know, I'm just going to keep it real. They break rules, stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of stuff they're not supposed to really pack. You know, I had several things of like soap, right? They packed a bunch of them, but then one broke on them. The guy dropped it and it broke on the thing, and it made a big mess, but it made them think again, like, okay, we're not really supposed to pack this stuff. And so the rest that they hadn't packed, they refused to pack. They left a bunch of water, but they packed some water. So they packed some of the cases of water, but then later, whether they got sick of it and they just realized, hey, we don't even supposed to take it. And they're like, we're not taking these cases of water. And so we had to take that. And so again, it's possibly going to be a little different for you if you're not military, maybe not rules, but moving companies have rules. For example, if we got a moving company now, I can't just take all my pots out here with my beautiful composted dirt in there, soil, sand, compost, just beautiful dirt. Was this dirt overly expensive? No, because I got it locally, but it's just a beautiful dirt, okay? And ideally, I would cut out the crop, cut down the crop. I would take the pot and I would take the pots. I would move the pots with the dirt in them, keep the dirt and move like that. Well, moving companies are not just going to take organic material like that. Oh yeah, just stack up your pots of dirt like that. No, they're not going to do that. Can you get away with maybe small pots of dirt that don't have a living plant in it? And I packed all those in a tote or packed all those in a box? Sure, okay. But there's rules, right? Agricultural rules, the different things that could be in that soil, bugs, infestations, all types of really nasty stuff can happen, okay? So there's rules for a reason. But it's like, okay, if I want the movers to move that, I've got to dump all of that dirt, all of that money I have to dump and leave it here to be able to pack all those pots, right? Anything that's not attached to the ground that I plan on taking with me, I would have to do that. Or I have to find a way to move it. Again, California, this was a huge issue. I had my first big patio garden, and it wasn't huge, but it was a very small space, but it was a very compact garden. So I had tons of pots, tons of dirt, tons of stuff. And it became, obviously movers wouldn't take any of it. And it became, okay, how do I do this? And so I ended up giving the lady across the way that was always kind of looking at my stuff, I gave her like a lot of it. And then the rest of the stuff that I just could not part with, my favorite pots, just a ton of plants that actually were still alive that I still was trying to keep going. And we put them in the back of hubby's truck, and we traveled with these plants and stuff in the back of his truck. And some stuff made it and some stuff didn't. But that's the decision we made instead of dumping stuff, throwing stuff out, giving stuff away. And so that's, again, something to think about. You've got to just think about the rules and a lot of the big things that we have. You know, a downer here is there's a lot of stuff we can't take with us, like the chicken coop. It's humongous. It's bolted down. There's just a ton of stuff and work that would go to taking it apart and whether it would get put back together. And so we're leaving it. And so you're going to have to make hard decisions when you're moving. But if you ask me, it is still, especially if you know you're somewhere that is not safe, it's super urban where you live still. For us, I'm not so much concerned about the amount of neighbors I have because we are in an unincorporated area outside of town and you need some sort of community. So I'm not mad that I live in like a semi-suburban setting, if you will, because I have neighbors that are lined up like on a regular street. And so ideally we're not, we're closer to neighbors than I would allow, but these are very, very big lots. Most people have a half acre or an acre. I mean, even the smallest is like probably a quarter of an acre. So there's some sort of space between these neighbors. So I'm okay with it. I'm comfortable with it. There's boundaries, right? I'm okay with it, but I'm not okay with the location in regards to how close we are to the West Coast still, and our elevation levels. I'm not okay with our location of this house and not having a basement, not having any kind of fallout situation. So there's some big life things that I have a problem with this location specifically. Not necessarily how far out of town we are, not necessarily the amount of neighbors I have around us. You know, all of that stuff can be worked into a plan. But moving is difficult. And if you know that you're in a location like this, or there's a situation that you know you need to get out of, and it's going to be hard. You throw in getting a job, trying to figure out when to leave your job, how maybe to transfer a job, all of that stuff financially, that's another nightmare in itself, right? This video is not to discourage you. It's to hopefully make you think of the things you need to think about now so that when it is time to move, your brain is not scrambling trying to think of the things that you need to do. I would love to hear in the comments below if there's a specific area or a specific item that you're like, oh, how could I move this? How do I move this? How do I move that, right? Oftentimes people are they just get a truck. And you just don't overthink it. And you just think about, okay, there's the stuff the movers are going to take. And then everything else, you're going to get a truck yourself and you're going to figure out how to move your family. And that's just part of your logistics of moving your family. And maybe that logistics of moving your family is much bigger than you anticipate because you've already spent thousands of dollars possibly for a moving company to come to get your stuff, to take the majority. And here you end up with much more stuff. Animals, there's other things you can do, but again, it costs money. There's boarding type places, flight type places, people that you could drop off your animal, they will fly the animal to wherever it needs to go, and then you'll pick up your animal. So there's other ways that you can get your animals where they need to go. I'm sure that there's livestock companies that will move, that their whole job is to move livestock for you. And so call them up. Hey, I'm trying to move from here to here. I have the following livestock. I'm trying to figure out how to get them. Especially if I'm moving from one state to another state, I'm probably calling help like that to help me out. Even if something as simple as chickens. Another option is getting rid of stuff. An option for us is do we just give away the chickens, right? Not sell them, do we just give away the chickens? You know, we just post it on an app, on a free app, on Marketplace, wherever, and we just say, hey, we've got these chickens, 2 out of 3 lay eggs, you know, come and get them, we're moving. And then we start anew somewhere else. But then there's the sad part of me that's like, those are the OGs. These 3 I have are the OGs. And so there are forever chickens, if you will. You know, there's no plan to kill these 3 chickens. We absolutely will kill chickens in the future. But these are kind of the OGs. These are my learner mamas, right? These are the mamas that are teaching me how to be a mama, right? As far as livestock, they're, you know, the gateway, if you will, into livestock. And so they're the OG of the chickens. They're the OG of the livestock. They're the OG beginners of the whole entire homestead as far as being self-sufficient and bringing some sort of animal that produces something to our home, right? And so that's a difficult task, but it is an option, right? Animals, same thing. Animals, you can pay somebody to take those animals and fly them, fly the dog, fly the cat, fly the other animals, right? Or you're figuring out how to do that. How do you do that with hotels if you have to stay somewhere? Maybe you're staying at an Airbnb, whatever it's called, right? And you're staying at that where it's a bigger house, it's a bigger location. Maybe there's a garage. You can throw the chickens in their cages and keep them in their cages, but throw them in the garage for the night. You know, think about different things that might work out for you and your animals, and plan it out. It takes a little bit more planning as well. You know, the very whim of I'm notorious for, we just get in the car and we go, and I'm not a planner of, we're going to stop at this town at this hotel. I don't do that, baby. As long as we're on a main freeway, a main highway, I never worry about being able to get a hotel at night. Never have I ever had a problem getting a hotel for the night. I will actually say, what's funny is I told hubby this a long time ago when we first met. I told him that, right? And the first time we were traveling, there was a big fire. We were on the interstate, and I was like, why are you trying to plan out where we're going to stop? We just drive till we don't want to drive anymore, and then we just get a hotel. It's on a freeway. There's always hotels. It's not going to be a problem. You do not have to plan this out if you're on major highways. And sure enough, the first time we traveled together, I think there was a fire. We went to a town and we couldn't find any hotel, and we were like, what's going on? Maybe there's a conference, maybe there's something, whatever. And then we went to the next town over, and there was no hotels, and we were like, what is going on? This is a really big conference. This is really big, convention that's going on. Like, what is going on? We finally asked somebody, and they were like, oh no, it's for the fires. And there was fires in like the mountains and some towns up, and so all these other little towns that we were going through were full of firefighters and different people coming to help with the fire, and so they were all full. So it was so funny that I said it with such confidence. I've been traveling my whole life like this, right? As a single woman, never have I planned and had a problem, and then the first time we had a problem. So obviously we just drove on, and then we were able to get a hotel, but you plan it out. This is going to take some more planning out, especially if you're going from, even if we decided to stay in Washington State and we just moved 5-6 hours away, that's still a significant trip. I'm not so much worried about plants and, food and stuff like that, but even just the animals having to stop, use a restroom, take them out. But again, it's close enough. We would just try to get there as soon as we possibly could, to just get there for these animals, right? And it's not as hard because you don't have to stop for the night. Any amount of distance where you have to stop for the night is where it starts logistically getting a little bit harder to do, okay? Again, I want to hear your guys' ideas. If you are a homesteader, a prepper, or somebody who prepares, you've moved recently, right? You've been able to start your dream and move up from out of the city to a rural area or whatever. You've increased and bettered your life, and you've made the move. You've made that leap. Let us know in the comments below, but let us know those little quirky things that you learned, those little tips for moving any of the stuff that I mentioned, or moving stuff I didn't mention. Maybe there's something that I didn't even talk about that's super hard to logistically move and think about, and I didn't even talk about it. So talk about that, think about that, share it with the group. Knowledge is power. I learn from you just as much as you learn from me. And what's great is we're going to be moving soon. So maybe some of your comments will help spark me with my own logistics, my own movement, my own trying to figure it out, what we're going to do. Because for us, if we end up in Texas, for example, that's a much bigger task to take on in regards to moving. And so, moving is stressful, but you can do it. You can do anything with God, and we'll just go from there. And we're gonna be good regardless. But you've got to do a little bit of planning out to make this as successful as possible. So, I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are having a fantastic week. Our week is good here. The sun has been outside getting a lot of stuff done. I've been actually laying some bigger river rock along the floor of my garden area. I used to have pea gravel, but I noticed when I use the blower, it blows the rocks, and so I got much bigger river rock that I'm setting down as is in the whole walk area. And so I've just been setting that stone down, doing that, and of course weeding and doing all that stuff. I have almost everything planted. I think I just have some cucumbers that I need to plant, and my sister last night mentioned, she's like, remember, we need pumpkins to be able to do pumpkin puree, all that stuff. So got to get those started too. Depends on what type I get, but I got to take a look at what I have in my inventory already and figure out if I need new seeds or if I'm good to go. So I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are enjoying your gardens as well. And I'll see you guys tomorrow on the next video. Take care. Bye.